Ryan Fleming here, RatG TV, and I am super excited. As you can hear, I'm not the only excited one here. We're sitting here with writer, director, and actor, and second time appearance here on the RatG TV show, Mr. Miles Doleac. Miles.
Hey, Ryan, it's great to be here. Sorry, I'm under a shelter-at-home order with a pack of dogs here in the greater New Orleans area. So as you mentioned, they're very excited to be with you as well. So if they start barking or acting up, please forgive. Audience, please forgive.
No problem at all. That just shows us that they're enjoying the show. That's all.
Indeed.
So, Miles, for those of our newer viewers that maybe didn't get a chance to see last time you were on or listen to the podcast, give our viewers a bit of your origin story. Tell us a little bit about how you got into the business.
Well, I have been acting at some level since I was about 6 years old. I had the good fortune to go to a really top-notch high school for drama in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, believe it or not, Hattiesburg High School, where we toured around to drama festivals and tournaments, and really gave me the opportunity to get my sea legs and learn the craft a little bit, and wound up at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts for college. Spent a little time in New York thereafter, and Los Angeles, mostly working in food service. The closest I got to the industry was catering the governor's ball of the Academy Awards. That's not exactly true. I did some stand-in work. I actually had the luck to, or the good fortune to work on Terminator 3 as a stand-in, and got to meet Claire Danes, who was lovely to me, and I had a nice long chat with her one afternoon on set. But anyway, I didn't get much traction early on. And so I had started taking some classes at UCLA with a professor named Scott Barchi, and was really enjoying that work. And it was something that I could focus my energies on, something that I was passionate about, something that, prodded my intellectual streak. And so I wound up sort of stepping away from the business, and found my way to New Orleans, which is 105 miles away from where I grew up in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, getting a PhD at Tulane University.
Right.
And this was in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. And so it was right around the time that the production boom was really taking off in South Louisiana. And it was one of those scenarios where I had sort of let it go, and it came back to me. Some opportunities came my way. In addition to some higher profile stuff, I got the chance to work with some fantastic, here's one of the culprits. There's one of the culprits. I got a chance to work with some wonderful independent directors, guys like Mike Mayhall. Worked on a movie called Jake's Road. Mike and I have remained close and continue to work on each other's stuff at every opportunity. And, I was just inspired to start doing my own thing and making my own films. And once I dove in, committed to doing that, my first film was called The Historian, which featured Bill Sadler and John Cullum and Colin Cunningham, Glennis O'Connor, some wonderful folks. And once I committed to doing my own thing, all these other opportunities started pouring in. Once I decided, hey, I'm just going to kick the door open myself, I started booking gigs on HBO shows and A&E and all kinds of stuff. And that's really been the trajectory. I did go on to complete that degree and started working in education, where I still am today. I'm currently a professor of digital filmmaking at Loyola University here in New Orleans. And then continuing to do my stuff and act. Last year I did some great stuff. I had a guest appearance on Watchmen, which was a lot of fun. I worked on Lovecraft Country, which is coming out soon, I think. So yeah, that's kind of the Cliffs Notes version. There are a lot of circuitous things going on in all that.
Well, there's a lot to unpack for sure.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to get back to a little bit, and it seems that schooling's always been a big part of your life, and not so much big, but it's an important thing to you, at least from the outsider's view. We talked about studying at Tulane, getting your PhD, but you studied abroad. You were in Rome, in Athens, in Munich, UCLA. What is it about academia that appeals to you so much?
I just find history, especially ancient history and ancient religion, absolutely fascinating. And there are so many depths to plumb there, and so many avenues to explore, and ideas and movements that are, of course, still incredibly important and influential today. Getting to visit the ancient world and to spend time in Italy and to spend time in Greece was an incredible treat for me. And getting to, walk on the stones and look at the buildings, and, standing beneath the Colosseum or the Arch of Constantine, or on the Via Sacra there in Rome, the major commercial and political center of the city. It was really special, and for a while there, that was my whole life, at the pursuit of those academic interests. But my love of movies and theater was never that far removed from me. I was always. I remember the first night I spent in Munich, to sort of decompress and relax when I got there. I went to see a movie. I think it was one of the later Die Hard movies, Live Free or Die Hard, or one of those. So that element of my life and my, passion and whatever it is that makes me tick, that was always sort of right there, lingering on the periphery. But yes, for several years, to get a PhD in history requires more or less your undivided attention. So, but you know what? Those pursuits and that study and that reading and that travel has made me a better writer, better director, better actor, even, having those experiences. So I will be eternally grateful for that path that I took in my life.
And no doubt, of course, with a PhD in history, your first foray into writing and directing is a movie called The Historian.
Right. Well, so they say, write what you know. Most of the time, it's not a good idea to get your start with a chamber drama set in academia. Maybe I would have been a little better off if I had gone for more of a genre piece earlier on. But that was just what was speaking to me at the time, and that's what I was witnessing every day. I saw some trends in academia that I thought were particularly disturbing, and I wanted to explore them. And I'm actually really, really glad that was my first film, and that I was lucky enough to land somebody like William Sadler,
right?
The great John Cullum, and the first 2 or 3 days on set. We did all of their scenes together because John had to kind of get in and get out. He was working on a play on Broadway at the time, I believe. And so my education, really, so much of my education, my early education as a film director, was sitting behind the monitor and blocking Bill Sadler and John Cullum and watching them play out these incredible duets. Two guys who have, of course, been around a long, long time and who are very, very good at what they do. So that movie was really eye-opening in so many ways. I wrote the role of Chris Fletcher for Colin Cunningham. I was watching Falling Skies at the time, and I just thought he would be absolutely ideal, never thinking I could actually get him. And he's the only person I offered the role to. I just reached out to his agent, and Colin liked the script and came on board and did it, and was perfect. So there was a lot of really fortuitous stuff going on with that film.
And how does that feel? Because that isn't a first day or an everyday occurrence for people to come out in their first film, they're nailing big time actors like that.
Yeah.
And you've kept this working relationship, especially Bill's been in a couple of your films now.
Yeah. Bill was also in The Hollow.
Right.
I mean, I'm always trying to get Bill. I love Bill. I mean, we have kept in touch, and I just chatted with him the other day, recorded a little congratulations video message for our graduating seniors in the film program at Loyola. So just a terrific guy, and I'm always trying to get him, but he's so busy. Well, he got
Bill and Ted 3.
Yeah, right. He's doing that now. He got this recurring role on Power, and he's a hard man to pin down nowadays.
And
I'm glad to see him working.
Such a strong actor too, and I want to say underrated, but I think he's underrated to fans. I think Hollywood really recognizes how great of an actor he is, and you don't get any greater than being the president in the Marvel universe.
That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
How many people can say they've gotten to wear Iron Man armor?
Right. Well, he had just come off that when he came to work on The Hollow, and the question everybody wanted to know was, what did it feel like to wear the Iron Man costume? So
when you get guys like that, or you get a William Forsythe, big names, and like you spoke about earlier, how do you, as a new director and a new writer and new to Hollywood, how do you keep the fanboy in you down, and how do you keep because you got to figure nerves get in at some point,
right?
Like, how do you keep those at bay and try to act like a peer of these veterans?
Well, it's really important. And as you say, it's really difficult. I've been watching these guys in movies for decades, right? I mean, Will Forsythe, what an incredible performer he is, and I was watching him. I was watching him in Boardwalk Empire, shortly before he was down here doing The Hollow. And I think you just have to remember that they're regular people, that they're actors. It has been a real help to me and a boon to my work as a director to come at it from an acting background, which has given me the ability to talk to actors or to feel like I know what I'd want a director to tell me, or how I'd want a director to talk to me. And so that's kind of how I approach it. I approach it like, hey, I'm an actor too. Here's what I think's going on in the scene. Here's what I'd like to see. And then, we try to have a dialogue. What do you see? What are you thinking? So at the same time, I think it's about letting them know that, hey, I'm the guy here, but I'm also open and collaborative, and I want to know what you think, because the fact of the matter is Will Forsythe and Bill Sadler have been around the business a hell of a lot longer than I have. They've seen it all at every level, right? So I do want to know what they think. The thing is, I'm not the smartest guy in every room, and I am certainly not the most experienced. So I recognize that these guys have a rich history and experience in this business, and I give them then the opportunity and the freedom to share that on our sets. And I think that goes a long way with them.
Now, I do have the question that kind of comes up to me now, thinking of you, teaching and directing, and the correlation between the two. Now, what do you take from the director's seat and bring over to the teacher's lounge, if you will, and vice versa? What do you take from your teacher's lounge and bring to the world of directing?
I think, in terms of taking from the world of directing into the world of teaching, and I teach directing, so it really is interesting. I think the most important thing is being clear about what your expectations are, whether you're as a film director or as a teacher. Here's what my expectations are. Here's what I'm expecting from you in this class. Here's where we're going in the class. This is my ideal destination. And I think that's something that bleeds across both disciplines, whether you're on the set or whether you're in the classroom. It's about being clear about where you see the thing moving. You know, what is the target, right? And that is harder in the independent film world than it is in a classroom, because inevitably you can't pay people what they're worth. Inevitably you can't have the design that you want. Inevitably there are just some things that you will not be able to do because of time and budget limitations. But if you let, you know, we're using this word in the press a lot lately, aspirational, right? If you're clear to people about what your aspirations are, oftentimes they will go out of their way to try to get it for you, if you earn their trust and their respect. So I think those things are true in both the classroom and on a film set. And you know, early on, to be frank, sometimes I wasn't very good at being clear about what I wanted, and I maybe let myself get pushed around a little bit here and there. But you know, so much of filmmaking, like acting, is about trial and error.
Right.
It's about making that inevitable mistake and then saying, that was stupid. I'm not going to do that again.
Are you at the point where you're comfortable now, like with directing behind the camera? Do you feel?
I think so. I mean, I can say that this film, the latest film, The Dinner Party, in terms of its aesthetic and its design, from, you know, the cinematography to the production design to the costume design, to the casting, to the score, is closest to what I envisioned before we started shooting than any other film that I've done. And that was in part because I was very clear about what I wanted from a visual perspective, from an aesthetic perspective. And the DP and I, Michael Williams, very, very talented DP. This is our second collaboration on a feature. We talked about trying to capture this sort of Baroque feel for the film. That especially in the early sections of the film, we wanted the shots to feel, from a lighting and color perspective, like a Caravaggio or Ribera, and I really feel like we were able to capture that. You know, when talking about, you know, the production design, Julie Tosh, our production designer, and her team, the altar room set in this film is one of my favorite sets I've ever worked on as a director.
Right.
The costume design, Lindsay Ann Williams, my incredible partner in life and art, designed these costumes. She also plays Sadie in the film. But we had these lengthy conversations before we started shooting, which was such a luxury. And it's one of those things where, once again, either time or budget considerations or trying to cast somebody at the last minute or any number of things that you run up against as an independent filmmaker, it often doesn't afford you the prep time,
right,
the planning, right? What is the vision? Where are we going? What is the target? And I really took the time on this one to do that. And you know, obviously, like with every film, there are unforeseen obstacles, you know, rear their heads, and you know, there are things that you have to overcome, and every set has a different set of personalities and problems, and that's just the nature of the beast. But I do feel like we came closest to capturing that initial vision, those embryonic discussions of what this project was supposed to be on this one. So I guess that means I've learned something, or that I'm more comfortable. I don't know if you ever walk away from a film going, that was it, I nailed it, now I've got it.
Right.
You know, there's always something you would have done differently. There's always something you wish you had done better. But I think this one we got pretty close to delivering that vision that we talked about up front.
Now, you've tackled a lot of different genres in your career already. Now, this is a lot different than The Hollow, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Have you, one, what is the one genre you haven't tackled yet that you really want to get to? And two, have you found kind of like that Miles Doleac film, like
Mm-hmm.
like what kind of, from each film you could see like that's your stamp on it?
Yeah, a couple of genres I would love to tackle. One is a history film, a
Right.
historical film of some kind, period piece, a real sure enough period piece. And I've also really wanted to do sort of like a quirky, offbeat, romantic dramedy. Um, Watching films as part of our directing class at Loyola, we screen films from various directors, and we screened Royal Tenenbaums from Wes Anderson. We screened Amelie, the Jean Genet film, and watching those films this semester, I thought I'd like to tackle something like that's in that vein, sort of light and this ephemeral and melancholic, but sort of tongue in cheek at the same time. So I think those are the two genres that I would most like to explore. But for me, at the end of the day, it's always about the script. I love all kinds of movies. I mean, there's not a particular genre of movie that I'm like, I would never do that.
Right.
Um, so it really is about the script, and I think if there is I don't know, a Miles Doleac hallmark, I hope it's that that I write interesting characters, or that my films contain complicated, fully fleshed out, fully realized, troubled human beings, in all warts and all. And maybe, if there some critics might say I spend too much time on the warts of many different characters in my script, but I love, I'm sort of a student of human moves, and the human psyche is so fascinating. So I think a lot of my films have this psychoanalytical component to them, where as my characters are traveling through their narrative journey. I think that is the thing that I would say is closest to having something that is a hallmark of what I do.
Do you get that from someone that you admire? Like, is there a director or a writer out there that writes in depth, like a Tarantino, a Soderbergh?
I mean, I love Tarantino's stuff, especially his earlier stuff. I mean, Pulp Fiction is one of my favorite all-time films.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of a lot of films from the 1970s, in the horror genre, films like The Exorcist or The Sentinel or The Omen.
All the ones that still give me nightmares.
Yeah, the Sidney Lumet stuff, which is not a horror, but like Dog Day Afternoon. Yeah. What an incredible psychological trip that is. With Al Pacino's work in that film, and I love David Fincher's stuff. Seven and Fight Club in particular. So I think all of those films are sort of pulling the curtain back on some troubling elements of who we are as human beings, and some inspiring ones at the same time. I mean, it's not all bad. I mean, I think that, you watch a film like Seven and Fight Club. I mean, they're dark films, but they're not entirely pessimistic.
Right.
Right. There's the Morgan Freeman character in Seven.
I was just going to say, I'm looking for the bright spot in Seven. Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it ends with that Hemingway quote, right? The world is full of good things and worth fighting for, I believe, in the second part. So I mean, that's the great thing about that character, is he knows how shitty things are. Yep. He knows that David Mills ain't gonna make it, most likely, but that doesn't stop him from the fight. Right? I mean, our narrator in Fight Club does kill Tyler Durden at the end. He kills off that persona. So I mean, Fincher's stuff is so interesting in that way, in that it's like, we all talk about how dark it is, but we don't focus enough on the little pinhole bright spots that he gives you to go, but this is why humanity is still worthy of exploration, and this is why the fight is still worth fighting. So yeah, I mean, those are, I guess, a few examples of people who inspired me. Michael Mann is his work really inspired me. It's really starting with Miami Vice,
right?
Which was probably one of the most important, informative pieces of art in my early life. That television show, and then Heat, is an absolute masterwork in my opinion. So I guess all of those have in common, that sort of plumbing the depths of the psyche of these really complicated and sometimes tragic figures who are trying to rise above, so oftentimes the obstacles that they've created for themselves in their lives. So yeah, there's so much great stuff out there, really. Wow.
Well, and that brings us right around to the dinner party. Mm-hmm. And you've got some interesting characters and cast of characters in this one as well. We're going to take a quick look at the trailer right now, and we'll break it all down as soon as we're done. Let's take a look at it right now.
How you feeling? We got this. Mm-hmm. I got this. These people at this party, they got Henrik Shepard's last 3 plays produced. All I need is the first one.
Come in.
Make yourselves at home in the room to your right.
If we impress these people, my play is headed straight for Broadway.
This house is so weird.
You don't look comfortable.
I have to say you have one hell of a house here.
How often do you have these dinners?
These secret dinners. No one knows we're here. In fact, they think we're on vacation. Let's eat.
You'll feel better soon, darling.
So that is it. That is the trailer for Dinner Party. And it looks like the cannibals have come home to roost in this one.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
I don't think I as much as I enjoy our talks, I don't know if I want to attend your next dinner. No, tell us a little bit about the movie. We saw a lot in the trailer there. Tell us about the movie, who stars in it, and what people have to look forward to.
Yeah, well, I really loved this script. First came to me not in the ultimate format that we wound up shooting, but a writer named Michael Donovan Horn had written the original draft of this, and one of my fellow producers, Jim Bullion, sent me the script, and I saw the bones of something that I thought was really interesting and special, and I love this kind of rogues gallery vibe that this film has, right? And I loved this, and this was all Michael, this idea that that these characters' trauma had inculcated in them this need to attack and harm and create trauma for other people, that abuse breeds abusers, right? And so we worked on the script a long time and got it to a place that we felt really good about, and I added a character and some spooky religious stuff, which I always enjoy, and we hit the ground running with it. Again, it's a film where I think these characters are really rich, and the actors who portray them just did such a magnificent job. Starting with Bill Sage as Carmine, who I was working with for the first time, and another wonderful character actor who's been in all kinds of fantastic stuff, going back to American Psycho, and Sawandi Wilson and Camille McEwen and my old buddy Mike Mayhall, and of course Lindsay, Richie Montgomery, working with him for the second time, and Allie Hart, who plays our lead, Haley, who was pitched to me basically by her agent Rachel Sheedy. And Rachel and I go back a way. She's Bill Sadler's agent. She also reps Mr. Sage. And, so she had read our script and she said, hey, I've got this actress. I think she's going to be the next big thing. You got to read her for this. And so we did. There's Allie. And she just captivated us. I mean, we all, we're all sitting around the computer and going, wow, this lady has something really special. And she really is incredibly magnetic and weird and vulnerable and powerful and all the things that you want from the lead in your horror movies. So really, really, really pleased. Thank you, Rachel Sheedy. I hope you're watching this, for introducing us to Allie Hart. She is a singular talent.
I will say one thing about Allie that I've seen in the movie and in the trailers here, and I find this with the good actors out there and the great ones, it's all in the eyes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And people always tell me, like, I'm just, because I can be critical of certain actors, that are big name actors out there, and I'm just like,
yeah,
I get they're pretty or they're whatever they are, but it's in the eyes, and you're saying just right there, you can see it in her eyes, like she's that character, she's living that moment at the very least.
Yeah, and I one of the things that I really I love actors' faces, and the eyes, of course, the windows to the soul, and so many the axial points, that say so much about where the actor is, where the character is psychologically, emotionally. And I love to be able to just get the camera right in there, and we shot a lot of ECUs, extreme close-ups in this one, and lingered on our actors' eyes. We have, Allie's eyes are just, spectacular. And, so you're absolutely right. We were very, very fortunate to have her, and this whole cast. There's just an esprit de corps, and a camaraderie, a collegiality, and I think a mutual admiration. And we spent a lot of time together, Lindsay and I, with Bill and with Allie, and as I mentioned, I'd known Mike a long time, and Sawandi. We'd go out to eat and drink, and we really got to know each other. So there was this kind of familiar quality about this group, and I think that you see that playing out in the film.
You definitely do. Now, when can you tell us about release, and how can the people at home watch this?
So we are set for a June 5 streaming release on the usual suspects, plus cable VOD. So check your Comcast or your Cox or your Time Warner menu, whatever. We had been planning for a small theatrical release, but COVID blew a hole in that. We have not totally ruled out some sort of theatrical presence. We're exploring the possibility of drive-in movie theaters and that sort of thing right now, but nothing concrete. But for sure, you'll be able to see it places like iTunes and others, and on your cable VOD menu on June 5. That's
going to be great, and people are going to love this movie because it's a lot of fun, and like you said, a very fun out there cast, it seems.
Yeah.
Now I'm not quite done with you yet, Miles.
Okay. All right.
We've got a new segment. I want to just throw a couple things at you here. Now, usually I interview a lot of wrestlers, so I usually ask them, for their Mount Rushmore of wrestlers. But for you, being the historian and, a lover of all things history, if you can have a Mount Rushmore of the most iconic historic figures of all time, who's on that mountain?
Okay, what are there, 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore?
That's correct.
Okay.
You're asking the Canadian.
Well, I think it'd have to be Alexander the Great, Jesus, and that's really hard. That is really hard. Probably Shakespeare.
Nice.
Maybe I don't know. I had if I had the greatest military general of all time, Alexander the Great, maybe I would, on the other side of our portrait, I would have arguably the greatest politician of all time, which would be Augustus, the very first ruler of Rome.
Right.
Not the first ruler.
First general.
The first emperor.
Yeah.
The great nephew of Julius Caesar, who went on to build Rome into, the most powerful military, economic, cultural force the world had seen to date. So I guess those four, if you just ask me off the top of my head. I'm troubled that there's no female presence in there. There are a lot of incredible women in history, including Augustus' wife, Livia, who had a great deal of sway.
Yeah. Joan of Arc, Cleopatra.
Yeah, Joan of Boudica, Cleopatra, Elizabeth I would be a fascinating addition to the mountain.
Well, here, maybe you can add them in for the last question I have for you.
Okay, all right.
Last question I have for the historian. What is one movie that needs to be made about someone in history that's never been made? Or at least that you think hasn't been made right?
I mean, I got to go to early Christianity again. It's the Paul of Tarsus movie. So Paul of Tarsus, who didn't know Jesus in his lifetime, but who is the single most influential figure in Christian theology. I mean, in my opinion, there's not even an argument to be made there. His journey from antagonist or oppressor of the early Jesus movement to becoming its greatest mouthpiece and champion and theological forebear is utterly fascinating to me. And what the hell happened on the Damascus Road, I don't know. And then he spends 4 years in Arabia, wandering around, and ultimately finds his way to Jerusalem, where everybody thinks he's a maniac and doesn't want to have anything to do with him. And then he becomes Saint Paul. But I don't think anybody's ever really told that story. Right. I mean, there have been a lot of Jesus movies, some good, some not so good, some that had good elements and bad elements, going all the way, well, even the greatest story ever told, and then Zeffirelli's and Passion of the Christ and all that. But nobody has really told like a gritty, complicated Paul story. I mean, right. The psychology of that guy. And he shows up very briefly, tantalizingly in Last Temptation of Christ, in Scorsese's film, played by Harry Dean Stanton. And there's one little scene, and it's fascinating. But I don't think anybody has ever told that story. The Alexander the Great movie also is terrible.
Right.
No, I mean, with apologies to Oliver Stone and Colin Farrell, who I love as an actor, I just don't believe it was the right role for him. And that was sad because the historical advisor on that was Robin Lane Fox, who is a real notable historian of Alexander. And some of the battle scenes, especially the Battle of the Hydaspes, where with the war elephants and Porus, where his horse Bucephalus is killed, and it's really well done. But you take one of the most magnetic, difficult, complicated, screwed up guys in history, brilliant, and make it boring. I don't know how that happened. So I would love to remake that movie too. But at least, a big time filmmaker came out and tried to make that story,
right.
Tried to make that movie.
Do you think that could have been a problem? Do you think that's a problem sometimes when not even a big time filmmaker, but when big time studios get to do certain movies that maybe a smaller company would pay better attention to and be more faithful to?
Yeah, I think maybe so. I think maybe the Alexander movie suffered from too much flash and too much panache and not enough character. Not enough. I mean, what we want to know is what makes that guy tick.
Right.
Right. Who is this guy? Who literally says, I'm going to conquer the world, and then does it.
Right.
Against seemingly insurmountable odds against, the Achaemenid Persian Empire, the mightiest empire the world had seen to date. They were unstoppable. They were
basically him and Genghis Khan.
Yeah. I mean, those two guys. Yeah. I don't know if anybody's made that movie either.
No. And you've seen Genghis or Jangus, depending on who you are.
Yeah.
And be depicted in multiple movies, but never a
Yeah.
movie. I don't think there has ever been a movie just about him and his life.
I mean, I think there was an old John Wayne movie about Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
But, it's John Wayne playing Genghis Khan. So, what can we say about that?
I mean, I see Charlton Heston as a Mexican. I don't know. I've seen it all.
But, I think there are historical movies out there that, whereas they don't get all the history right, like Gladiator.
Right.
It doesn't get all the history right, but it's compelling, right? It's immersive. You feel like, okay, I'm there with them in the arena, and you have a compelling character, and you have a compelling foil in Joaquin Phoenix, and but I mean even something like 300, the original 300, which is on some levels totally ridiculous.
Right.
It kind of gives you a sense still of who these crazy ass Spartans were.
Exactly.
Right. And Gerard Butler really, you feel like, oh, that guy could be Leonidas. He could be the guy.
Well,
so
Fassbender as well.
Oh yeah, Fassbender. I mean, it's not that I'm one of these guys. It's like every single historical element has to be positively spot on, but it at least needs to feel like it's in the spirit of.
Now, as a geek myself, and I have this conversation with a lot of my followers when we talk Marvel movies versus DC movies, and why Marvel seems to get it right and DC doesn't, is because even if Marvel takes a character and changes their name or changes their ethnicity, the heart and soul of that character is the same. You take Superman and you make him callous and not really, just be like, man, I don't really care. That's not, and I believe that's a problem too. Is like, and not to make it like about that, but just in everything, as we were speaking about, stay true to the source. It doesn't have to be historically accurate on every account, but at least give us the true meaning behind everything.
Well, Frank Miller, when he wrote those comic books, going back to 300.
Yeah.
And I mean, the second one's pretty bad. The Rise of Empire. Although I really love Eva Green in that, but the rest of it's pretty dull. He'd read the history. He'd done his homework. He knew he was going to create something bigger than life and caricaturish and all that stuff. But foundationally, he understood what was going on, right, at Thermopylae, and that shows in the film. For sure. And he has this. The perception, the way the Persians are portrayed in that film is basically how the Greeks saw them. These other Oriental monsters, who, wore makeup and, dressed like women, and, that's how they saw them.
Right.
So even though it's this gargantuan leap from reality, it's still sort of spiritually connected to the moment and what was really going on.
Right. And hopefully we can get more movies like that. And when we have filmmakers like yourself who understand that, I think we're only going to get better movies and, better feeling movies where we can connect better with them. And it's going to feel more akin to, like we said, the wherever the story actually comes from, whether, a comic book or actual events.
Just out of curiosity, are you a fan of the more recent DC stuff, Wonder Woman, Aquaman?
Yeah, I liked Aquaman. I liked Wonder Woman. I really like. I find DC has this 2-act problem. I find they're great for 2 acts, and then the 3rd act is always kind of. And I said it the same with the Hugh Jackman Wolverine movies. I find they're always great for 2 acts, and then the 3rd act is just. It doesn't fit in with the movies ever. Like the Ares, even the Black Panther movie, which I thought was a great movie. That last act, the CGI fight between the two of them, takes you right out of all the greatness, the rest of the movie. But I like where they're heading. I really loved Shazam. I thought Shazam was a great movie. I think, what is his name? Not Andy Samberg, David Sandberg.
Yeah, well, at least they're not taking themselves so seriously anymore, right?
Exactly.
At least we have that.
The problem. But I think they're heading in the right direction, and who knows? Who knows where they go from here?
Yeah.
It's I mean, the world is wide open for them right now too, especially with the one thing with the COVID. It's given them a reset. You know, so it's given a lot of companies time to rework their stuff before they put it out, and maybe give them times for the fans to kind of forget some of the stuff they've seen that maybe they didn't like.
Yeah.
But I'm a geek though, so it's really hard to please me ever.
Well, again, I loved Wonder Woman in particular. I just hope that I hope they deliver with the sequel. I heard some buzz that maybe some of the early test screenings had not gone well, and but I mean I just thought it was really wonderful on a lot of fronts. Starting with the casting of Gal Gadot, I just thought she was perfect.
Yeah, she's fantastic. I had no problem with her being cast as well. I liked a lot of their casting. I mean, I was a big fan of Cavill before I saw Man of Steel.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I was like, oh, it's weird to hear Superman without a Midwest accent. It sounds like a British guy trying to do an American accent.
Yeah.
I love Affleck as Batman. I think he's the perfect Batman. I don't think he was given a good Batman to work with.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he did a pretty good job with it. I mean, I don't think it matches the Chris Nolan films, but just in terms of the casting, and I was a little dubious when I first heard it. I was like, does that work? But yeah, I thought he was quite good.
Well, for me,
and he really,
I've always been like Ben Affleck's always been the top of my making Batman board since I was a little kid.
Well, he really captured that kind of world weary, tired, and I'm.
But he could still be a playboy at the same time.
Yeah.
And you think that he could kick your ass if he had.
Right.
Right. Whereas no offense with Christian Bale, I never saw that. Like I like Christian Bale to me should be James Bond. He looks very unassuming. He's not a very muscular guy. I don't know that he's quite as handsome as you need to be James Bond. Like I think Tom Hiddleston's probably the best one to take over the mantle right now. But I don't know. I'm not too sure. I'm always fan casting in my head though.
Well, I agree. I agree that I thought Affleck's Batman was solid. And I'm sorry he didn't get his own movie. That's
same. But hey, we'll see what happens with Robert Pattinson and
what Matt Reeves did with those Planet of the Apes movies, I thought was incredible. I mean, I'm like
exactly.
I mean, those are really terrific films. I mean, the CGI god that is Andy Serkis too. I mean, he's got you that, you're on Team Caesar all the way. You're just like, how does he do it? That's not real. He's unbelievable.
Hey, Serkis is great, and Serkis is directing now as well. He's directing Venom 2, which is going to be great.
Oh, wow.
Woody Harrelson played Carnage in that movie. So
many years ago when I was in LA, I went to a SAG conversation series with Andy Serkis, and where he was the speaker. And this was in the wake of Two Towers. And he was just talking about his life and trajectory of his career and all this stuff. He's really a fascinating guy. And then there was a question and answer period after, and somebody asked him if he would do the scene in Two Towers where Gollum and Smeagol are fighting with each other. And he did it live, verbatim. I mean, exactly as it appears in the film. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. I mean, it was people were on their feet screaming when he was done. I mean, it was absolutely perfect. And it was like, that's Gollum. That's it. And he's wearing a suit and just being Andy Serkis. Unbelievable talent.
He truly loves what he does, though. You can tell that everything he does, whether it's directing, acting, wearing a mocap suit, like for
right.
Who's in a mocap suit as often as he is, and happy as often as he is?
He's just he loves it. And it shows. It shows. I mean, that passion and that love and that the sheer delight he takes in his craft, it shines through everything he does. Whether he's playing, Claw in in Avengers or Gollum or Caesar or whatever it is.
Right. Well,
he's real talent.
Well, I can't wait to see him one day in a Miles Doleac film.
Nor I.
tackle some of that. See him and Bill Sadler in a movie together.
You hear that, Andy? Come on, be in a Miles Doleac film.
Yeah, that's because you know the one person he's watching. It's the RatG TV show right now.
We can hope. You never know.
Miles, I want to say thanks again so much for being on the show. Again, one more time, let people know when they can watch Dinner Party.
So June 5th, check your local cable listings, your cable VOD menu, iTunes, Amazon, the other usual streaming platforms. Pick your poison. But please give our film a watch. As you can probably imagine, it's a tricky time right now for movies. It's always a tricky time for independent filmmakers. So, I mean, now I guess it's the playing field has been leveled. So give our film a watch, and if you have a few minutes, say something nice about it on IMDb or Amazon or iTunes. You know, give us a review. It can be, you know, a sentence. It can be, you know, great film. But folks pay attention to those things. It's a huge help to us indie filmmakers who are, you know, trying to get our name and our material out there.
Well said. And lastly, is social media, how can anybody follow you?
Yeah, check me out on Twitter at Miles_Doleac or Instagram, Twitter and Instagram. I'm trying to be more Twitter savvy nowadays, but I'm always on Instagram, and, you know, I'm doing a sonnet a day, a Shakespeare sonnet a day during the quarantine, inspired by Sir Patrick Stewart, who of course does them much better than me. But I feel it's incumbent on us, those of us who create, to keep creating, keep being creative, despite this obviously terrible and difficult, complex moment that we're in. So yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Miles_Doleac, and also on Twitter.
Awesome. Amazing. So much. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and do the show again with us, Miles. For Miles Doleac, folks, remember, go out and check out Dinner Party June 5th. And this was presented to us by DocNet as well. For Miles, I'm Ryan Fleming, and thank you for watching another edition of RatG TV.